The Defense Ministry calls the Ambazonia separatists terrorists and say it'll crush them. Such statements strike fear in the hearts of civilians who have borne the brunt of indescribable cruelty at the hands of the gendarmerie. Our reporter Randy Josa has more from Yaoundé.
Defense Minister Joseph Beti Asomo is troubled by two spectacular attacks on Cameroon's elite commando force. Using what seemed to be rocket-propelled high-charge explosives, they destroyed 3 armored cars in 2 separate attacks. A total of 22 commandos were killed. The prestige of the army seriously dented. For that, the defense force and military commanders have made Cameroun capital of the troubled northwest region. He made his explosion.
Go out to the street and this is basic right for us. That is why we are saying that there are 2 Cameroons that live together. If you are telling us, like a state minister from the last told us that what happens in Cameroon is like dropping a few sugar to a basin of water. Who is the sugar and who is the water?
As the minister and his top military command strategized in Bamenda, armored personnel carriers and assault vehicles began rolling into town.
Our children in West Cameroon. I call it West Cameroon. Never take it out of our house again. Because that is a territory
soldier on duty at the roadside to
leave freedom. To go out to the street and demonstrate is a basic right for us. And that is why we are saying that there are 2 Cameroons that came together.
Seems to tell the people
if you are telling us, like a state minister to the last
English speakers, the fear is real.
I am Gabi Ambo.
The grip of a vicious civil conflict for at least 4 years now, based on a separatist impulse arising out of the French-speaking central government's refusal to allow English-speaking people the right to conduct their lives in the language they choose. The war shows no sign of abating anytime soon. The Defense Ministry calls the Ambazonia separatists terrorists and say it'll crush them. Such statements strike fear in the hearts of civilians who have borne the brunt of indescribable cruelty at the hands of the gendarmerie. Our reporter Randy Josa has more from Yaoundé.
Defense Minister Joseph Beti Asomo is troubled by 2 spectacular attacks on Cameroon's elite commando force, BIR. Using what seemed to be rocket-propelled high-charge explosives, they destroyed 3 armored cars in 2 separate attacks. A total of 22 commandos were killed. The prestige of the army seriously dented. For that, the defense boss and military commanders have met in Bamenda, capital of the troubled northwest region. He made this disclosure.
The new paradigm of the security situation, which is already in the process of consolidation in this region, as in that of the Southwest, warrants a change of approach in the action of defense and security forces. Obviously, I cannot give you here the details of the appropriate...
Very prominent linking arms walking the Champs-Elysees.
It's gotten a lot of attention on Twitter. A lot of people are saying, wait, where's the outrage of for what's going on in Nigeria? We saw 4 million people marching in the streets of Paris. We saw world leaders gathering there to sort of stand in solidarity with Paris.
We proud of who we are. We proud of who we are. We proud of who we are. We proud of who we are.
Yeah,
Good morning, and you're welcome to the Southern Cameroons Ambazonia. This is Comrade Funta Daniel. I will be speaking live here from the great state of Texas, here in the United States. It's 9:55 a.m. here in the great state of Texas, and 9:55, probably 9:55 in Southern Cameroon Ambazonians. Fellow brothers and sisters, I want to thank and appreciate all of you that I continue to support these self-realizations of the Southern Cameroon's quest for sovereign identity. I deeply appreciate the Ambazonian restorations, the Ambazonian defense system that are fighting tirelessly to realize that our sovereign nations gained its rightful sovereignty. Our people were never a conquered territory of the neighboring country, La Republique Cameroun. Our people, it was a fraud. The British government, I know each time when I come to this media, what comes to my mind is Sir Andrew Cohen. That's the single British national. That is the single British national that brought us to this mess that we find ourselves in, this fighting, losing our lives, fighting for a foreign colonial master, foreign colonial dominations, the La Republique du Cameroun. So that is why I am here to remind the world, not just everyone, I'm here to remind the world for the quest for justice, do the right thing for the common good of all mankind. And that is why it is imperative that we continue to take a closer look about the Southern Cameroon territory. I will be bringing speeches from other different dimensions on the question of Southern Cameroon. The fellow brothers here in the great state, here in the United States, the U.S. diplomat, the U.S. embassy, the U.S. government, all these essential world leaders. It is imperative because sometimes we look critical analysis and then we evaluate and we draw a conclusion, and that is why we find a distinction how Africans are treated vis-a-vis international community and how they treat their own self. And given the fact that Africans have leaders that are mentally deranged, and of course, if you have those mentally deranged individuals govern a nation, there is nothing you can expect, a progress that you can expect to self-realize from those individuals. And that is the very imperative that Africa needs to grow up and start develop its own capability. However, I want to appreciate all the Ambazonian defense system that are fighting for the restoration of the sovereign state of Southern Cameroon. It is imperative that we continue to give them all the necessary support, all the necessary activities that will sustain them, because they are there because we are here. And it is our collective duty to give them all the support, the necessary, so that they can self-realize it. And I want to really appreciate the Kumbo. They have been carrying on a very massive job, and Ngokutunja, Lebialem, Victoria, all the various areas in Southern Cameroon territory. I really appreciate you to the bottom of my heart for the duty that you guys are implementing and taking on action on the foreign invader, the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun. So it is my continued that all of us in the diaspora, to give you all the necessary support and everything that you need to be able to conquer this neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun invasions. So it is very, very crucial that we give you all the necessary support. I am going to bring you to see the action they are taking against the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun, vis-à-vis the ground floor. Now, but before we go into that, but I also want to thank the United States to continue to appreciate. But I think the United States is not doing much as they could. And when it comes in terms of Africa, United States need to do more. And that is why I am going to focus today on the United States and other areas of the stakeholder. That Africa needs United States to do better. United States can do more. It's not just word, but it's an action. Now, let's first of all listen to this. Let's listen to this music take a while and listen to this music.
Everyone wants we proud of who we are. Everyone wants we proud of who we are. Lensing and Senchen Bovini goes and see even while we are watching go. Bovini goes and see and
This is a typical natural setting. I enjoy this music. It represents the image of a natural setting, utilizing the material from our own natural setting and present this music. And I thought it's something very interesting. And that is why I bring this. I know it's just hitting the internet or just hitting the airway. But however, it is very worth to see in a natural setting than in an artificial setting. So let's listen to this very powerful song, and I'm sure you all.
We proud of who we are. Kunkere, Batini, man, Famina, where I want. Everyone wants we proud of who we are. Everyone wants we proud of who we are. Kunkere, Batini, man, Famina, where I want. Everyone wants we proud of who we are. Everyone wants we proud of who we are. Sensing and Senchen Bovini goes and see even while we are watching go. Bovini goes and see.
The adjustments and actions which will be deployed without delay.
As the minister and his top military command strategized in Bamenza, armored personnel carriers and assault vehicles began rolling into town. As the armored assault vehicles pass by, this soldier on duty at a roadside thinks aloud. You declared war. This is the war you invited. You attacked our elite force B, he says. You will get it hot, he seems to tell the people of the region. This serves them right. Amongst English speakers, the fear is real.
I am Gabi Ambo, a human rights consultant in Bamenda. It's disheartening to know the Minister of Defense will make such utterances at such moments 5 years down the line. So we thought that the government definitely would have put in place a measure to see how well it rules of this conflict rather than stepping it up in that circumstance. It's annoying, it's disturbing, it's unbelievable.
You can never fight against the people until you can succeed. And coming with heavy weapons in an area where you don't even know the people you are fighting, it means that you have a different intention to come and destroy everybody. Is that how Rwanda did before bringing peace in its own country? I don't know.
Those boys, each time there is an attack, you see them displaying the weapons that they have seized from the military. So they should be looking for a means of how to get the weapons from them, not talking about they are getting assistance from out of the country. Well, they will use gunships and many more civilians will go down.
Franklin Sonne Bayen is a media expert who has watched the evolution of the Anglophone crisis and the rise of the Ambazonia separatist fighters.
We've left from professional grievances to the call for a federation, which was at that time called a taboo subject, and people were locked up because of that. And then we've gone to a level where a group abroad is calling for restoration of independence without arms. We're not talking. There is an armed group waiting. There is the Ambazonia Governing Council of Cho Ayaba, which wants nothing but an armed struggle. So things are shifting, and the more we waste time, the more it gets radical, the more it gets dangerous for the country, for everybody, because if there is a war, we are all in danger. Each time we pretend that we can't talk with these people, somebody else is warming up to get it worse.
As people of the Northwest region await the unknown, more and more dissenting voices are emerging, calling on President Paul Biya to end the war that is pitting Cameroonians against themselves.
Randy Josa reporting from Yaoundé.
I am sure you all listened to the BBC reporter on the question of the Southern Cameroon crisis. And the fact, because the reporter is physically in La Republique du Cameroun, in Southern Cameroon territory, and the person in question is very cautious of his word, because whatever he says, he will be indefinitely picked up by the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroun. And this has brought us to the police policy of deceptions. I will read the United States Department for African Affairs policy on the, I'm going to read the U.S. Department of State for African Affairs Foreign Policy on Bureau for African Affairs. The Department of State Bureau for African Affairs focus on the development and management of the U.S. policy concerning Africa continent. The Department of Africa strategy focuses on three core objectives: advancing trade and commercial ties with key African states to increase U.S. and African prosperity. 2, to protecting the United States from cross-border health and security threat. 3, supporting key African state progress towards stability, citizens' responsiveness, governance, and self-reliances. This is the core value of the U.S. Bureau for African Affairs. And this brought us to these questions. I have here the person that spoke in BBC, while I say is very cautious of his word, is because he believed that he is internally, and therefore he is a threat by La Republique du Cameroun, and that is why he uses the word very cautiously. Now, let's come to the United States. United States understand the truth, and the U.S. Foreign Secretary of State for African Affairs, he clearly stated, former U.S. Undersecretary for African Affairs, clearly stated they understood the history. And if you understood the history, how often does the United States continue to allow this mess lingering around for this continual 5-6 years for decades? The policy is clear. Southern Cameroon, I posted the government of Southern Cameroon of 1965. The government of Southern Cameroon, for those who are not able to visualize, I have here the government of Southern Cameroon. The government is not a state, it's the government of a sovereign nation of Southern Cameroon, and a cabinet, and a prime minister and his cabinet. In the two images just underneath me is John Funcha, the head of government of Southern Cameroon. Just immediately, him is Joa, the prime minister whom you see the cabinet just underneath of me. Let me read the cabinet. Just hold on. Let me read the cabinet of this prime minister of Southern Cameroon. Just give me a minute. Let me have the access to that. Cameroon State Government 1965. Head of Government A.N. Joa. Head of Government A.N. Joa. Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, P.M. Kemcha. Prime Minister, P.M. Kemcha. That's the government of Southern Cameroon in 1965. So why I talk about dishonesty, political deception, and the United States need to come out clear. This is a political deception, and I urge the United States to come out clear and recognize the people of Southern Cameroon so they can move ahead with their government. It is imperative that the United States do the right thing. Now, this is the government of Southern Cameroon in 1965. Prime Minister A.N. Joa, that is the Prime Minister of Southern Cameroon in 1965. P.M. Kemcha, Minister of Finance. Dr. E.M. Endele, leader of the House of Assembly. That was the first Prime Minister of Southern Cameroon. Now he is become the leader of the House of Assembly. Dr. E.M. Endele, leader of the House of Assembly. P. Moi, Secretary of State for Interior. S. E. Ncha, Secretary of State at the Prime Minister's Office. That's the Southern Cameroon Cabinet. J.H. Nganje, Secretary of State for Cooperative and Community Development. F.N. Anjebeso, Secretary of State for Agriculture. J.N. Tame, Secretary of State for Forestry and Veterinary Medicine or Services. S.N.J. Yo, Parliamentary Secretary in the Minister of Agriculture. P.M. Kale, Speaker of the House of Assembly in Southern Cameroon. N.N. Bile, Secretary of State for Works and Transport. J.N. Lefon, Secretary of State for Local Government. And L.M. Ndamukong, Secretary of State for Education. And M.M. Monono, Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Works. And A.W. Daiga, Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Local Government. Those are the cabinet government of Southern Cameroon. It is very, very crucial and dishonesty to see the United States ignore these fundamental questions of the sovereign state of Southern Cameroon and would persuade it. Imagine this was happening in European nations. I believe the United States would have done something. I am not crucial. I am not deciding how the United States functions. I am not how the United States functions. But it is imperative that the United States does it rightly. This is Biden administration. This is Biden administration. I am not I am not judging how the United States functions, but I question the validity how the United States take action when it comes to continent. In Europe, United States highest level of cabinet, including the president, including the ministers, they have been in Europe. No single European, no single African nation has Biden administration stepped into Africa since he became the president of this amazing nation. Biden administration, no single high-level cabinet officials has traveled to Africa since he became president of this amazing nation. Now, this brings us to self-realization that the United States undermine the integrity of Africa. I am not, I am not questioning how the United States functions, but we, Africans, we look at how the United States does things. It becomes questionable that the defense system. But no single Biden administration has stepped into Africa. Now, on the question of the Southern Cameroon, it's very amazing that it was one of the top priorities of the U.S. Secretary of State, citing the question of the Southern Cameroon. It is imperative that the United States pursue its policy. It's not just confirmation hearing, but it is a matter of putting forward and executing action, not just word of the mouth. I mean, Africans is just kind of, all Africans are wondering what is the policy of the United States? Why is Southern Cameroon in particular of interest? Because it was an injustice meted upon the people of Southern Cameroon, deprived them their right of existence, their right to exist as a sovereign nation. And now they're pushing back on the foreign nation, La Republique du Cameroon. Now let's listen to the CNN. And now we can now conclude. Let's listen to CNN. Stay tuned, don't go away.
The grip of a vicious civil conflict for at least 4 years now, based on the separatist impulse arising out of the French-speaking central government's refusal to allow English-speaking people the right to conduct their lives in the language they choose. The war shows no sign of abating anytime soon. The Defense Ministry calls the Ambazonia separatists terrorists and say it'll crush them. Such statements strike fear in the hearts of civilians who have borne the brunt of indescribable cruelty at the hands of the gendarmerie. Our reporter Randy Josah has more from Yaoundé.
Defense Minister Joseph Betty Assomo is troubled by two spectacular attacks on Cameroon's elite commando force, BIL. Using what seemed to be rocket-propelled high-charge explosives, they destroyed 3 armored cars in 2 separate attacks. A total of 22 commandos were killed. The prestige of the army.
That's the problem. We are committed elsewhere in the world. Black West Africa is not a priority. Very stark, very hard to say, but that's the case right now.
For that, the defense boss and military commanders have met in Bamenda, capital of the troubled
West Cameroon. We'll never take it out of our mouths again, because that is a territory which we live with freedom. To go out to the street and is a basic right for us. And that's why we are saying that there are 2 Cameroons that live together. If you are telling us
in Paris, we saw world leaders gathering there to sort of stand in solidarity with Paris. Where are those calls for the same kind of justice for the people of Nigeria? Help us understand the difference here and maybe why we're not hearing the same level of outrage. Or is there a reason?
Yeah, good morning, Michaela. Yeah, the issue is, the stark difference, isn't it? World leaders, very prominent, linking arms, walking the Champs-Élysées, complete solidarity against this and outrage against what happened in Paris, vis-a-vis what we see in Nigeria, which is truly not, it should not be surprising. Look, what's happening in Nigeria is barbarous. It's horrible. I mean, it's complete madness, yet it's not a priority. The United States unilaterally could do almost anything it needs to do. It would be a long-term effort, but it could be done. And the United States has the capability. All the elements of power, we have those.
So why not?
It's not a priority. That's the problem. We are committed elsewhere in the world. Black West Africa is not a priority. Very stark, very hard to say, but that's the case right now.
Of course, you all listed Black West Africa is not a priority. Of course, and then that brought us to the conclusion that since Biden administration came to power here in these amazing great nations, has totally isolated Africa completely. I mean, the highest level of cabinet government here in this great nation has traveled to Europe. The highest level cabinet has traveled from the same administration has even stepped foot into Africa, despite the fact that Biden, Secretary of State, during the confirmation hearing, he mentioned strategic hotspot Secretary of State. Of course, after his confirmation hearing, he remained muted. Even to have a phone call to his own office, no one is even accepting phone call, especially when you call the office, because you get frustrated for things that are not done correctly, are not done right. And yet you can't have someone to be able to pick up the phone. Of course, no, you call and they say leave a message, and the message goes to an unknown destination. And that did. Imagine that that same phone call was coming from Europe. That would have been picked and directed to the highest level officials. It is deeply frustrating for Africa as a whole, seeing this behavior as a funny. Of course, we don't have the strength and the might of the military capability. Europe does. And so the United States would rather choose Europe rather than dealing with Africa that they don't have even the military might. Of course, then that becomes a matter of hypocrisy. That if we are talking about stability, what stability, then we need to focus on dealing with, because its implied statement that Africa needs to develop its own nuclear weapon that will give them the capability to come to the forefront and discuss with the United States. I believe that if they are speaking about nuclear disarmament, therefore the United States needs to stand up for its obligation and do it right. Because if they are going to Europe because of their military might, then Africa is the least concerned. So therefore, implied statement means Africa needs to develop its own nuclear weapon so that it will change the dynamic, so that United States leadership can also visit Africa. That is an implied statement. It is an undermined policy when you watch all this. In fact, I am very unfortunate to talk about it. The former president was more fully engaged when it came to African policy as concerned. I understand, they may not appreciate me mentioning this, but however, I have to talk about it. There was a suspension of military aid to La Republique du Cameroun under the former president's administration. There was suspension of military aid to La Republique du Cameroun. He went as far as suspending trade in La Republique to carry on any trade embargo in the United States. Those were significant policy initiated by the previous administration, and it is Africa want to see Biden administration go extra mile in regard the question of Southern Cameroon. The people of Africa want to see United States going extra mile and surpass the policy of the previous administration. Of course, during the confirmation hearing, they saw U.S. Secretary of State in his highly energized confirmation show his deeply support on the question of Southern Cameroon. But unfortunately, he has remained muted. Neither does his office even show any sign of showing progress and what he is currently doing. Of course, he suspended visa. How does visa help? If the previous administration suspended military aid, and I can bring the 4-star general showing his action that they took against La Republique du Cameroun, then the current administration should go extra mile to beyond. The people of Southern Cameroon is a sovereign, distinctive sovereign nation that has its own government and cabinet. Why is it that the United States support them to remain under a foreign dominant? Their government were deprived by the UK administration. They deprived them, despite that they have the best democratic institution in the first West Africa, even including Nigeria. Nigeria has not fully elected a democratic just because of the recent one that you just have. In the time of the 1960s, Southern Cameroon demonstrated this capability of elected officials. How much does the United States see? It is imperative, because Africans are watching. They're seeing the United States action by not doing nothing. it is very imperative that the United States look into this crucially.
What happens in Cameroon is like dropping a few cubes of sugar
As the
into a
minister
basin
of
of
the
water.
top military command
Who is the
strategized in
sugar and who is the
Bamenda,
water?
armored personnel carriers and
Stand in
assault
solidarity
vehicles
with Paris.
began rolling
Where
into
are
town.
those calls to the same-
As the armored assault vehicles pass by, this soldier on duty at a roadside thinks aloud.
Good morning. The issue is,
You
know,
declared
there's a
war.
stark difference,
It's the
isn't
war
it?
you invited.
World
You
leaders,
attacked our elite
very
force,
prominent
B,
linking
he
arms
says.
walking
You will get it
Champs-Élysées.
hot, he seems to tell the people of the region. This serves them right.
Vis-a-vis what we see in Nigeria, which is truly not, it should not be surprising. Look, what's happening in Nigeria is barbarous. It's horrible. I mean, it's complete madness, yet it's not a priority. The United States unilaterally could do almost anything it needs to do. It would be a long-term effort, but it could be done. And the United States has the capability. All the elements of power, we have those.
So why not?
It's not a priority. That's the problem. We are committed elsewhere in the world. Black West Africa is not a priority. Very stark, very hard to say, but that's the case right now.
Of course, and you can listen and listen. Imagine if you are from West Africa and you hear a high-level United Nations, high-level CNN reporter speaking about U.S. priority. How will you feel as an African? Of course, you feel pain and suffering. You feel like totally, complete neglect. Of course, that is true, you know, because from the Biden's administration, you will agree with me that the highest level of United States administration has traveled to Europe. The highest level of administration, including the president, the executive government, has traveled to Europe. But zero, none highest level officials of the United States has stepped foot in Africa. The current administration, of course, despite the fact that they demonstrate their ability. And then when you see a CNN reporter classify a certain region of Africa, specifically West African region, and that is the trouble spot. And that priority is not existence of the United States. And then one feels pain and suffering as you watch, because the people of Southern Cameroon need just simple recognition. They met the criteria of the United Nations Resolution 1514 XV. They meet the criteria. And it is very embarrassing and disturbing that an English speaking of origin of Southern Cameroon will find another foreign nation, French, dominating their own territory, controlling their own aspect, carry on military, barrage of military weapons, and destroy the fabric of Southern Cameroon. And yet, it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't matter to the international community. So if we were to say, okay, let's utilize the law, and if we were to say we are governed, we are subject by law. I remember when I stopped by a police because I happened to be speeding. And it indicates that because I'm speeding, I am violating the law. So the law is applicable to everyone. irrespective of their social status. It is applicable to everyone, and that everyone is bound by the law. And if everyone is bound by the law, the United States need to apply the law as it is. The people of Southern Cameroon is bound by the law of the United Nations. The United Nations Resolution 1514 clearly states decolonization. It did not say partial decolonization. So the people of Southern Cameroon met those criteria. Why is it so difficult, so challenging that the United States cannot stop this bloodshed? Simply recognize the statehood of Southern Cameroon. Southern Cameroon has its own government, has its own cabinet, has everything they need to become a sovereign state. And yet it doesn't matter that the United States can do something of reasonable judgment in arguing that the people deserve their right existence. It is imperative that the United States do the great thing and do it right. Recognize the people of Southern Cameroon. That is all the United States need. They don't need financial support. They just need recognition. That's all the people of Southern Cameroon need. That's all. La Republique du Cameroon is an opportunistic. It's taking advantage. And France is the one sponsoring this behavior. France is the key actor behind sponsoring La Republique du Cameroon, because indirectly the mineral resources is to the advantage of France. And yet, we, the sons and daughters, are fiscally here in the United States, asking United States to do something. It is imaginable that one will get frustrated and not seeing the United States taking drastic action. It's simple recognition. That's it. Of course, if we were to look at United States as a sovereign nation, in fact, the first nation to recognize United States sovereignty, it was an African continent, the Kingdom of Morocco. Acknowledged the first African nation to recognize the United States as a sovereign, distinctive sovereign nation was the Kingdom of Morocco. That means Africa played a key role. Why is it that the United States cannot do the same? It's very, very frustrating, and you watch and you think that the United States can do the right thing for the common good of mankind. Let's see how they're struggling to defend themselves against the invading force of La Republique du Cameroun. Let's watch.
Oh, vous savez d'abord votre vidéo. Ah ça? Vous savez d'abord votre vidéo là quand? Voilà. Oh, now we go for the one. When I left there, we'll go for the one. When I come for the one. What's that? Oh! Ah. What's that? I'm over that granite. Oh! Get the one. No, wait. Get the one. That thing.
No, I don't.
You see that the camera.
I think Goody Funzo. Goody Funzo.
This is the lifestyle, that's what's going on in Southern Cameroon. Let me read a message that is shown from the U.S. Embassy in the neighboring country, Republique of Cameroon. We simply will not achieve a strong, equitable, resilient global economy if women, girls aren't fully included. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. Of course, you will know that that is the U.S. Embassy, totally as though they are clueless of what is actually going on. They focus on things that is not even the least priority. It is very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate to watch U.S. Embassy. Well, of course, there is not an ambassador in U.S. in La Republique du Cameroon. Of course, they have whatever they call a high, whatever, something. Well, secretary or what, high of chargé, something chargé. I don't know where they come with the French name chargé. It is very, it is terrible. It is terrible. Very unconcerned. That's the U.S. Embassy. I'm sure they've been now for almost a year without an ambassador. I think it's time the United States has some person in that embassy to have a representative that can make a significant judgment. Of course, we knew the previous ambassador is no longer there. But now we have what they call something chargé. What are chargé? I don't know where they came out with a French name in the U.S. Embassy. But however, they have this. It's absolutely unconcerned. Like they are not even aware of a reality that is happening in La Republique du Cameroon and Southern Cameroon. It is a bizarre, to be honest. It's a bizarre to see a U.S. putting this on its platform that we cannot achieve strong, equitable, resilient global economy when women girls of this. It seems like they are not even it seems like the embassy is not even aware of what's going on. It is something that should have been a priority on the question of the Southern Cameroon question, that U.S. should have been priority. They focus on something that is insignificant to Africa at this critical moment. It is a nightmare. It's absolutely a nightmare. Because when you go into the U.S. Embassy in the neighboring country, Republique of Cameroon, and you watch this, and it seems like they are clueless. They're clueless. Is that the priority of this? The priority is the state hold as a whole. That should have been a priority. And that the United States should be fully engaged. Because when you watch this, when you see this, it's terrifying for the United States having this as their own priority. Of course, I don't decide on what U.S. government should do. But however, when you watch the United States government posting irrelevant information that had nothing to do with the current crisis that is going on, in which the United States has the power to do something, to change the dynamic. Let's listen. This is what is happening. Mr. Secretary, this is what is happening. Watch.
I don't know.
I said we don't shoot. I said we go for that motor, we go waste time.
Mr. Secretary, this is what is happening. It's what is happening now. It's not stories. It's not makeup. It's something happening now. What should be the priority? About women talking about something that is irrelevant to the current crisis. I think the United States can do better. It's frustrating. Of course, I think you can listen from the CNN analyst that the least priority when there is an armed chaos going on. And the United States Embassy is posting, well, there's not an ambassador. Well, you can expect whatever comes into the U.S. Embassy because there is not an ambassador in the first place at the U.S. Embassy. They don't have an ambassador. So if they do have an ambassador, ambassador, of course, then we can talk about something reasonable. But since they don't have no ambassador, they have something they call chargé. I don't know whatever is chargé. Chargé is a French word. I don't know how they get a French word and post in the U.S. embassy. Chargé. Chargé what? I mean, it's terrifying. It seems they are clueless of what is going on. But they are aware. Intelligent, the smartest intelligent in the world is U.S. But they deviate from the truth and focus on something that is irrelevant. Irrelevant. I mean, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Especially when you are from West Africa and you listen for the CNN analysts and you watch the embassy posting irrelevant something has nothing to do. Then it has become a horrifying. It is absolutely horrifying. I think United States can do better. US can do better. US can do better. Anyway, we can all talk. We can talk, but nothing is going to take place. But this is the people that have their own government. They have their own government. I mean, one thing is a diabolical frustrating. Because even though United States is the mightiest nation on the planet, the question of the crisis vis-a-vis the United States is similar to the question the people of Southern Cameroon that are not, they're just 8 million of inhabitants. But the crises are the same. And so United States can do something much better. Equatorial Guinea, their population is not 1/10 of the people of Southern Cameroon, and yet they have their sovereign state. Why is it that the people of Southern Cameroon must live under the umbrella of a foreign domination, carry on their military, crisscross, and murdering our citizens, our brothers, our sisters, and yet the world see it as irrelevant and focus on what they call girls living together? What is the priority of that? That is irrelevant to the current crisis of this magnitude. United States can do better. United States can do something. United States has the ability to do something. It is quite deeply worrisome. It's deeply worrisome. It's deeply worrisome. But United States can do more. United States has its ability, has the capability. Well, because it's a dark continent, the people of the black race, well, how does the black race have to do? We would deal with the European because we share the same common color as our own. But yet, we don't care less about Africa because it's the least concern. Of course, imagine, United States has, current administration, has the highest African in his administration. Well, the current president has the highest number of African in administration. Yet the policy that is being implemented is a sluggish policy in the entire since 1960. Since the 1961 administration here in the United States, the sluggish movement of policy within this administration, they can do something better. People of Africa want to see active doing something, not just words or staying muted. I mean, anyway, it is
English speakers, the fear is real.
I am Gabi Ambo, a human rights consultant in the Menda. It is disheartening to know the Minister of Defense will make such utterances at such moments 5 years down the line to recover the government people of the measure to see how well the rules of this country.
That was the U.S. former ambassador that was in the neighboring country, La Republique of Cameroon. Since he left that position, he has not got a replacement. And yet we have what they call attaché or something, 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 something. They have something, something, a French word they call chargé, chargé. I don't know what is chargé. Chargé may be something of French origin in the U.S. embassy. Of course, there is no policy execution. I mean, you can understand. The person they call chargé is incapable to stand the U.S. policy. The person who they have as chargé in the neighboring country, La Republique, has inability to execute her duty. You know, she has inability to execute. After the former ambassador no longer there, they call chargé. Chargé is worthless. I mean, if she can put this U.S. Secretary of State in the front of the embassy, it seems she is clueless. Because if she can post this at the U.S. embassy to show to the foreign world, to the world body, that is U.S. policy. She is absolutely clueless. And that is why there's no action taking place. There is zero action from the United States because there is no ambassador. There is a great vacancy. And there's someone there they call chargé. I don't know whatever he's charging for. It is absolutely disturbing to have an embassy that has no ambassador. And since there's no ambassador, there's nothing you can expect from them. That is why you take U.S. Secretary of State and post something that is irrelevant to the current crisis and to spearhead and speed up the process. How action can be taken in the respective. She's so clueless. Absolutely clueless. I don't know whether she knows what the importance of the U.S. embassy. That is it. I mean, it's terrifying. It's terrifying to watch posting the U.S. Secretary in the front page of the U.S. Embassy in the neighboring country as though she's clueless of what is happening. I mean, it seems she had basically zero idea of what it is. I think U.S. need an ambassador. U.S. need an ambassador, a reasonable person who has a idea that can present the foreign policy of the United States, not a doorman at the U.S. Embassy in the neighboring country, the Republique of Cameroon. Because it represents the image of the United States. It represents the image of the United States. And having someone presenting the image of the United States who is absolutely clueless, it is an abomination. It is an abomination. But anyway, you have nothing to do. It's irrelevant to the current situation of crisis. So we need high-level diplomat at the neighboring country there. This is what is happening.
There are no visit on an official visit into Bamising. Nachak, Sheshek no de, na grandpa so. Is a me lung Dakarian for Bamising. Something no de, dog no de. See how picking them then a long line. Now FM that so. Dog no de. Found a palma take the picking them.
This is something people are fighting for liberation. They're fighting for their dear life. They're fighting for their freedom. Those are people fighting for freedom. Should that be a top priority of the U.S. diplomat in the neighboring country like Republic? I believe so. I believe so. But when he posts the U.S. Secretary of State talking about something that is irrelevant, it seems like it's clueless of what is happening. It's clueless. And that's why a diplomat is needed at the U.S. Embassy in the neighboring country, like Republique of Cameroon. Because having someone that has no idea of what is a foreign policy is a devastating to the image of the United States, especially in West Africa. This is a priority. Imagine this envoy passing through the United States. 500 police would have been, defense system of the United States would have been there to watch what is going on and to resolve the crisis. It means something is problem going on, and that the United States has a capability to solve this problem. It was an injustice that made these people agitating. It was an equal injustice. And that should be the priority of the United States diplomat in the neighboring country, like Republique of Cameroon, to stand up and speak up. But it's portraying U.S. Secretary of State on something that is irrelevant. Irrelevant. Well, one might say, oh, it's U.S. foreign policy. That is irrelevant policy. Irrelevant. Irrelevant. If people are taking arms, it means that is a priority. If people are taking arms, if people are fighting back, it means there's something going wrong. Should the embassy intervene? I think so. But when the embassy put a blanking the U.S. Secretary of State and showing things that are irrelevant to the current demise that is going on, the one wondering, what is the U.S. policy? Is it a disgusting policy? Of course not. But yet, because we have someone at the position that is incapable to do his or her job. That is what is going on. That is what is going on.
Oh, now we'll go for the one. When I left there, we'll go for the one. When I come for the one. What's that? Oh! Ah.
That is the life that is going on in Southern Cameroon. That is the life that is going on. That is the life that is going on. And yet, you watch the U.S. diplomat, or they call something chargé, whatever it is, chargé. Chargé of what? I mean, it's a nightmare. Posting the U.S. Secretary of State. Let me read it again. We simply will not achieve a strong, equitable, resilient global economy if women and girls aren't fully included. Is that a priority at this moment in this crisis? Of course not. So we need to look at priority and posted messages that are significant related to the current crisis. La Republique of Cameroon has a president that has been for donkey years, and there is ongoing genocide in Southern Cameroon. The U.S. Embassy is clueless, but its mention is something, and that is why there is no ambassador in that country. Since there is no ambassador, they have what is so-called chargé, and chargé is irrelevant of what is going on, clueless. But in fact, United States has the best security intelligence. but they are led by someone that is clueless of what is intelligent. Having someone at the mercy of supervised intelligent officials is going into a sleeping slump. That is what the embassy is now, a sleeping slump embassy. A sleeping slump embassy in the neighboring country, the Republique, because there is absolutely no ambassador there. They have someone they call chargé that is clueless of what is going on. Clueless, idealistic, has no idea, idealistic. But anyway, but the United States can recognize the people of Southern Cameroon so that they can move on with their sovereign identity. They don't want to live together with the neighboring country, Republique du Cameroun. And that is why they are fighting back. It is a duty and obligation for United States experience to recognize the people, the will of the people of Southern Cameroon. I'm sure that is one of the things. It says towards stability, self-responsive governance, and self-reliance. Where is this policy being implemented by the U.S. Embassy in the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroon? Do they read their policy? Do they read? Do they execute them? Of course not. That is why the current secretary went into a mute since his confirmation hearing and highly energized messages to the world as his top priority after his confirmation. Now he's muted. He's mute. He doesn't longer speak no more. Neither does he pick phone call from his office. Yet, salary is going. Salary is moving. Of course, salary is moving. Who cares? That is the situation. But anyway, thank God the Ambazonian firepower. The Ambazonian firepower is what's going to liberate the people of Southern Cameroon, because we are waiting for international community that they are all in coma. The international community are now in coma. No one cares. No one speak up. Of course, they remain silent. But when they leave power, that is when they come up and state what they think they shouldn't be doing. Meanwhile, when they were in power, they can't even do nothing. That is the U.S. Secretary. Let me bring his message again. Let me bring him. Wait, just hold on. Stay tuned. Don't go away.
It's annoying.
That's why we are saying that there are two governments that work together.
And coming with heavy weapons
like
in an area where you don't even know the people you are fighting, it means that you have a different intention to come and destroy everybody. Is that how we want that people bringing peace in the country? I don't know.
Those boys, each time there is an attack, we see them displaying the weapons that they have seized from the military. So they should be looking for a means of how to get the weapons from them, not talking about they are getting assistance from out of the country. Well, they will use gunships and many more civilians will go down.
Franklin Sonny Bayeng is a media expert who has watched the evolution of the Anglophone crisis and the rise of the Ambazonia separatist fighters.
We left from professional grievances to the call for a federation, which was at that time called a taboo subject, and people were locked up because of that. And then we've gone to a level where a group abroad is calling for restoration of independence without arms. We're not talking. There is an armed group waiting. There is the Ambazonia Governing Council of Cho Ayaba, which wants nothing but an armed struggle. So things are shifting, and the more we waste time, the more it gets radical, the more it gets dangerous for the country, for everybody, because if there is a war, we are all in danger. Each time we pretend that we can't talk with these people, somebody else is warming up to get it worse.
As people of the Northwest region await the unknown, more and more dissenting voices are emerging, calling on President Paul Biya to end the war that is pitting Cameroonians against themselves.
Randy Josa reporting from Yaoundé.
The Cameroonian government established several commissions, and I'm sorry, I don't know the exact name of it, whether it's the Multicultural Institution for National Reconciliation or something, which on the face of it, and there have been a couple of these, but they have not been provided adequate budget, and they have not really done anything. because what the country needs more than anything else is a genuine, open dialogue, probably to include the diasporas of the Cameroonians, because they have a great deal of interest in this. Because, sir, what's happening, both sides are becoming further and further radicalized. Unfortunately, I believe that the president of Cameroon is being told by his hardliners that he can win this thing militarily. There is no way that they're going to win this militarily. The violence is going to get worse in the northwest and the southwest. The arm for an arm, literally an eye for an eye, and the whole world will be blind there. The violence will spread to the West Province. It may even spread to the Littoral Province, which is the large city of Douala. So there has to be something. We are very, very energetically speaking with our allies. That's why I said that we just had in the Security Council this Monday what the United Nations calls an arias, where it's an open debate, and it's so clear that everybody wants to move forward on this. Are sanctions on the table? Everything's on the table moving forward. But we have to bring this situation to an end. Else, there's a possibility of what happened in Nigeria with Boko Haram. Started as a small movement, and now look at it. And it'd be disastrous for the region if the Cameroonian government turned this thing into yet another type of Boko Haram.
Or Boko Haram could come back into Cameroon. Well, how do you mentioned, that it appears to be spiraling out of control because the more the security forces clamp down, the more resistance there is in the Anglophone region. So what can we do that we're not already doing?
Well, like I said, the best we can do for right now is just work with our allies to really make the Cameroonian government understand the need for a real dialogue. And if that doesn't happen relatively quickly, then we have to look at the array of other tools we have in our toolkit, because, frankly, the possibility of sanctions is always there. But it's always better to work in concert with our friends before we go in that direction, because the frustrating thing is it is in the interest of everybody to have a national dialogue. The situation will not end militarily. Each day, the atrocities will get worse and worse.
Is the permanent separation of the two regions a possibility?
Sir, I don't believe so, because I think that